right. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for coming on the call, tuning into the Zoom, Facebook Live, the whole platform. We're on YouTube as well. My name is Dave Kaufman, and I am not, as you can tell, I'm not in my normal studio at my home office in Sarasota. I'm actually in Lancaster, Pennsylvania at a lawyer's office, believe it or not. And so coming to you from a totally different studio, but I wanted to honor my commitment to make this show happen and provide great material. And I promised when I started this show, I said that once in a while we'll have guests on. And today I do have a guest. His name is Eli King. I'll introduce him formally here in just a little bit, but before we get started, I do want to mention a few things that you can call in. We already have some callers in on the Zoom line, but please share this video. If you're on social media, please share this video and help spread the word that we're doing the show again. I don't know. A lot of you may remember back. I forget what years it was, but I did a radio show. And then later on, I started doing a free conference call for the Plain Community Business Exchange. And so this is kind of a remake of the radio show. It's a podcast. It's a video show. And then we also have the traditional phone calls. And thank you all for coming on. So a lot of you have been so kind to my wife and I over this past weekend. We, not to make a big deal out of it, but we lost our dog of 14 years. You can go on Facebook and see pictures of Mr. Gibson. Mr. Gibson was my dog. He rode with me. He watched football games with me. He helped me with the yard work. He even was a Trump supporter. So you'll see pictures. If you go on Facebook, you'll see all of that. But we had to put him down Sunday, so 2 days ago. So thank you for all the kind words and comments on Facebook. So we are going to go ahead and bring in our guest. His name is Eli King. And so the title of the show is, What Does Amish and Real Estate Investing Have in Common? And here to tell us all about it is Eli. How are you, Eli?
I'm doing great, Dave.
Good. Good. So Eli's a client of mine. We've been coaching together now for what? This is the second time that we've coached together. So obviously we have something going on.
We have lots going on. Lots of good things, I will add.
Yeah. So I met you at an event up here in Lancaster. How many years ago was that?
That was in 2016, so that would be 8 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, 8 years ago is where we first met. And recently at a conference, what was that, in March?
Yeah.
This past March, here in Lancaster, he came up to me and said he thinks he needs a coach. So this is the second time around. And we're just hanging out today. He's showing me a lot of his properties. And I introduced him to Vietnamese food just a couple of minutes ago. Eli, you won't hurt my feeling if you say you didn't like it at all and you'll never go back again. But how was pho? It's spelled P-H-O, pho. It looks like pho, but they pronounce it pho. What was your honest assessment of Vietnamese pho?
It was delicious.
He loved it. Awesome. So he loved it, and we had egg rolls, we had shrimp. Let's see, what else was it? We had all kinds of stuff. So, and if you're not muted, if you're on the phone, please go ahead and mute yourself so we don't get any feedback coming in. But Eli is a real estate investor and has a really unique story. His story is in a book that he co-authored with some pretty cool people, and he brought it to show it to you today. It's called Success Habits of Super Achievers. And if there was ever a super achiever, this guy is it. Like he's done some remarkable things, but we're going to turn it over to him here shortly. But just kind of give you an idea, how many units do you have, rental units? 100 and
right now I have 196.
196 rental units, and we just toured a bunch of them. It's amazing. This guy's doing a lot of great stuff. Um, and then you have some pretty aggressive, big, what you call BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And that is what is your BHAG?
So my BHAG is to own 100 modern townhouses by the time I'm 45 years old.
And how old are you now?
36.
Wow, 36. And by the time he's 45, 100 modern townhomes, and you're already working on it, right? So that's part of the reason you hired me, is to help you structure that and advise. And so what are you doing right now to starting to achieve that goal?
So we have recently started buying building lots so that we can build our own. And what enabled us to do that is the older houses that we have been buying ever since I started in real estate in 2010. So the big run up in real estate values over the past 5 years has allowed us to trade some of our equity from those older homes. So we sell them, and now we can afford to buy these building lots. And we are just getting ready to start our first building project, a 9-unit that is scheduled to start hopefully later this year or early next year. That will be breaking ground.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, we toured. You showed me the property you just bought last week,
Yes.
where 40 townhomes are going to go.
Yes.
Wow, it's amazing. So, Eli, you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You weren't born into a rich family. You had rich heritage, but not money, wealthy. And so something happened when you were 12 years old. Tell the audience what happened when you were 12 years old.
Well, so when I was growing up, we had a big farm. I grew up on a dairy farm in Perry County, 122 acres. And we had lots of work, lots of space, lots of good times as well. But one thing that we always struggled with on the farm was with finances. So we were constantly behind on bills, and there were a lot of reasons for that. My parents had some pretty big health issues that caused a lot of hospital bills, and it was just a challenge. And I got so fed up with this. I was convinced there was a way that life wouldn't have to be like this. And so when I was around 12 years old, our neighbor came over to visit, and he said he and my dad got to talking. He was 90 some years old, and he had owned the farm for 40 years earlier. And so he liked to stop by just to talk with Dad and see the home farm. And so he and Dad got to talking, and he said to my dad, "John, I bet you could sell your farm for $500,000." And I knew that my parents had bought it for $187,000 in 1979. They had put an additional like $60,000 in, so their all in was like $250,000. And this was around 1998, 99.
Okay.
And I was like, so in 20 years, the value of this farm had doubled. And after Joe left, I asked my dad, I said, "Dad, you only owe $200,000 in this farm. Joe says it's worth $500,000. Why are we having money problems?"
Right, yeah.
And so my dad explained it to me that, well, we could sell the farm and we have money, but then we wouldn't have a place to live. And he loves farming, and that's what I do for work. And we have to have a place to live and to work. So we were stuck. And I decided right then and there that that when I get older, I will pay my bills on time every time. I was tired of dealing with all that. And it came to me through that experience that real estate might be the answer, but only if I bought more than I needed. So that if the values did go up,
right,
that I could sell one or two off and have money to do whatever, pay the bills, invest it, or whatever. And so that was definitely a pivotal experience when I was growing up.
So I want to go back to 12 years old and the stress of your parents not not having enough money to pay the bills and financial stress that made an impact on you.
It had a big impact. Yeah, I was the second oldest, and I have a strong personality, and it just bothered me that we all worked so hard and just couldn't get ahead financially. It wasn't for lack of hard work. It wasn't for lack of, um, being very busy. It wasn't for lack of trying.
Trying,
It
yeah.
wasn't even for lack of believing.
Yeah.
We believed better times were ahead. I mean,
Right,
many times
yeah.
that was the only thing that kept you going.
Yeah.
But despite all those things, routinely we would, my parents would sit down at the table, and they would go over the stack of bills, and the milk check would come in, and they would go through these bills, and they would have two piles. They would have a pile that we can pay today, and they would have a pile that has to wait till next month.
Wow. Wow.
And I just, I just, I just hated it.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
this is awful. And we were working hard.
Right.
And we have a family of 7 and 6 boys, 1 girl, and we worked really hard.
Yeah.
And that just got under my skin that we worked so hard, and yet the bills, are there, and we just can't get ahead of it.
Yeah.
For some reason, that just burned me.
So, in a sense, the insecurity of that birthed the motivation to become the man that you are.
It definitely had a big impact.
Yeah, yeah. And so, for all the listeners on Facebook, and we have a lot of people calling in as well, thank you guys so much for being on. Please share, by the way. Go ahead and click the share button right now and get more people on, because this story is amazing. He's only just said just one, like a day out of his story, basically. But when we struggle financially, especially as parents, it's not just husband and wives that are struggling. It's affecting our children, whether we know it or not. I mean, I find that interesting that at 12 years old, that the stress of seeing your parents struggle, because you always had food to eat, you always had clothes to wear, and like your life probably wouldn't have been different if you had a lot of money. You still would have had to work that hard because it's farming. I grew up on a farm too. So your life probably wouldn't have changed dramatically if you had money, as far as how you live your life and what you do. But just the knowing that there's more month than money, that did something for you. And it's probably doing something for a lot of children out there that we don't, as parents, as business owners, we don't really think about how that affects our children. But it's a powerful thing. Powerful thing. So at 12 years old, you said, when I grow up, I'm not going to be in this position. And because of, you heard John, I think your neighbor, say 500,000 that you can sell, and you bought it for 200, that birthed the idea of real estate kind of in your mind?
It did. It ingrained in me that real estate goes up.
Yeah.
I've heard about it. You hear conversations that, especially at farm auctions, they all talk about how his grandpa bought the farm for 10,000, and now it sells for 400,000. So I'd always kind of known deep down that real estate does go up. I just hadn't been so personal to me.
Yeah.
Like our farm, where I work, where I live, is worth double what my parents paid for. That just blew me away.
Yeah.
Like, this is real. This is not just some book. This is
real life. Where's my money? Is it under that field? Where is it? I'm sure you're thinking there's money on this farm somewhere. But okay, so what happened after that? So you kept working on the farm, and then what happened?
So we kept working hard on the farm. Anybody that is a farmer or that grew up on a farm knows exactly what I'm talking about. The hard work never stops. And we had a lot of good times on the farm. So despite the financial difficulties, that's where I have my best life memories is right there. Our family working hard on the farm, and so I did love farming. And that was what I wanted to be. I was wanting to be a farmer. I was what I knew, and I just knew that somehow there's going to have to be some money made to make that happen. Because my dad was not really in a position to buy a farm for me or anything like that. And so at 18, we had a job offer come in for me from a roofing company, and I was 18 and needed to, go earn some money. So my dad signed me up for 3 days a week, and I started roofing. And I loved the roofing job too. It was a job where you could just really get good at it and hammer down. And we got paid piece rate, so I had a pretty high degree of motivation on the job, if you will.
Yeah.
And we, we worked hard. That's hard, hot work, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed um, just being up on top of the roof. It's kind of like, top of the world there, at least the small part of the world I was in. And we would challenge each other. I'll beat you with my side. I'll be done before you. And we would
Typical 18 years old.
We would hustle and did that for around 2 years. And then my parents came up with this brilliant idea of moving to Indiana. And I was like, "God, moving to Indiana, that's a big deal."
Yeah.
And so they bought a farm in Indiana. And when I was 20, we moved out there. When I had about a half year before that, I had started dating Rebecca, which is now my wife, and she happened to live here in Lancaster. So that was going to be a challenge, this whole long distance thing. But we moved to Indiana in April of 2008, and I spent most of my time on the farm helping dads get settled in. And then I would come into Lancaster about twice a month for generally 10 days.
Okay.
Well, I would spend 2 weekends a month in Lancaster.
Okay.
Generally, it would be like coming in Fridays and spending the weekend. Then I would spend the next week working at a construction job I had picked up here.
Okay.
Spending the next weekend here and then going back out to Indiana with my parents. So that was kind of my life, and we had just gotten engaged and were scheduled to be married in October. So that was my life in 08. We got married in 08, and I moved here to Lancaster, and we had lined up a cute little 1 acre property with a 3 bedroom house to rent. And here in Lancaster at that time, the general culture was we would live with our in-laws until we can move into our own property. And my landlord happened to live in this house we were going to move into, and he didn't get around to moving out quite as quick as I would have liked. So finally, by March, we were able to move into our new property, and it was a rental property, and we just got settled in. And I was working the construction job full time now, and so that was what I did. I liked construction. I was a hard worker, and I had just recently gotten a 50-cent raise to $12.50 an hour, and I was rocking. I was providing for my family.
Yeah.
And so we moved in March and had a great week. The week following was beautiful weather, and that Saturday evening the phone rang. And so I hustled out to the barn and answered the phone. "Hello, this is Eli." And on the other end was my boss. He's like, "Hey, Eli, I just had a couple big jobs get canceled, and I'm going to have to lay you off." Like, "How long is that?"
Wow.
And he said, "Well," he said, it starts right now, and we'll let you know if that changes." And I didn't know what to say because there was nothing to say.
Right.
But I was very afraid. Here I was, just moved, 500 miles.
Right.
Didn't know a whole lot of people in Lancaster. My job was my security. That was how I was going to provide for my family. And here I didn't have a job anymore, starting right now.
Yeah.
No notice.
Yeah.
That was brutal. And so,
newly married too.
Yeah, just got married.
Wow.
And we had just got done spending some money to, get stuff to settle in, and we didn't have a whole lot of money in reserve.
Right.
I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? And I'm the guy that's going to pay my bills every week.
That's right.
And my bills are going to get paid.
Because he made a commitment at 12 years old that when he grows up, he's going to make his payments on time, not have to struggle. And so, commitment. Let's talk about commitment. You were committed to that from 12 years old to this point, but all of a sudden, and you were well on your way, you were like making it. And all of a sudden, how many of us can relate with that feeling that things are going well, and all of a sudden the hammer drops and you lose a job, or you get a diagnosis, or you lose a dog, not to compare losing a dog to losing a job, but that life happens, right? And so it's at that moment that commitment kicks in.
Something kicked in. I would call it fear, but yeah, I guess commitment probably had a lot to do with it, more than I realized. But so I was unemployed right now, Saturday evening, 7 p.m., and I didn't know what to do. So we went to visit my dad-in-law's the next day and explained our predicament. And he was running a construction company that had a full crew already, wasn't looking for more workers. This was in March of 2009, so things were just starting to really get shaky right at that time. And the stock market was bottoming out.
Yeah.
Just everyone was freaking out. But he said, "Hey, look," he said, "if you stay here overnight, I can take you along to work in the morning." I said, "Well, I don't have my work clothes. How's that going to work?" And so I borrowed my brother-in-law's work clothes, and I went to work with my dad-in-law the next day.
Wow.
It was
that's real commitment when you wear your brother-in-law's clothes.
I had to do what I had to do.
It
was sink or swim time.
Right. And just to pause that story, a year earlier is when I had my experience where all of a sudden it was walking into my office, and I'd just taken on a new job, and he said, things are really slowing down in the industry. You're the latest employee. You're relieved of your position starting immediately. And it was right in 2008 when things were starting to head south. 2009 is when it culminated. But 2 weeks later, my wife lost her job, and I was freshly married. I didn't realize our story had such a comparison to it. But so I know the feeling. I know the feeling of like, oh my goodness, our life is about to change.
Not a good thing.
It's scary. It's really scary.
And so, I just worked part-time for my father-in-law. He didn't always have work for me. He told me, "I'm not going to hire you full-time." And I said, "Well, that's too bad, because I would love to work for you full-time. I'm a good worker."
Yeah.
But he didn't want to run a second crew. It wasn't, the economy wasn't a good time to do that. And he was running six workers already. And so I worked, for him as he had work. Most of the time, if he had, say, 2 jobs going on, like one wrapping up, and we just needed to have extra help to go wrap this thing up, then I would have an opening. And pretty soon he told me, he said, "Hey, Eli," and I started looking around for a full-time job. And I would make these phone calls. It was not 2024. I will tell you that. And so I'd make these calls, and most people said, "Oh, we're not hiring right now." And I said, "Okay, well, that's too bad." And I did find a couple part-time job offers, 2 days a week. The one offered $10 an hour, 2 days. And I looked at the numbers. I said to Rebecca, my wife, I said, "That's just not going to cut it for us. We can barely pay the bills with that. And it's just not going to get me anywhere. And I'm not going to tread that.
Yeah.
That's not going to, I'll do what I have to do to pay the bills, but I don't want to be stuck in this long-term, not getting ahead situation." So I declined those, and my dad-in-law told me, he said, "Look," he said, if you're gonna want to make it, you're probably going to be best off doing your own thing. You knew a little bit how I think, and he said, "Why don't you just start your own business?" I said, "I dreamed of doing that sometime, but not right here, right now." But that's what I did. I knew roofing. I knew roofing well. And so I launched my own roofing company in the early summer of 2009. And I went door to door around developments and just handed out business cards and cold called people. And it was a hard summer, but I was fulfilling my dream of providing well, and that just really kept me going. And we were always struggling to find work. It was just the economy was in not a good place at that time, and just the combination of not having a lot of connections in the area just made it really rough. And I was always looking for work, and there were days I had no work, and so I would sit around and read. That was quite the shock for me to not have work. I grew up on a farm. There was work thrown at you from every which way, but I couldn't always find work. So I read 2 books in the summer of 2009 that had a huge impact on me, and those 2 books were The Slight Edge. So The Slight Edge
by Jeff Olson.
Was one, and that explained to me that what you do today matters in the future. And it also shared how your direction is more important than your current position. And that meant something to me because I'm...
Wait. You said your direction is more important than your what?
Current position.
Okay, so that's good. So 12 years old, he made a decision. He started in his mind. He started first in that position. You position yourself in your mind at 12 years old. And so whenever you have a position mindset, it doesn't really matter what current position you are because you know where you're headed. That's what you're saying, right?
I was headed in the direction of providing wealth for my family and paying my bills on time. There's a lot of unknowns. I didn't know how I was supposed to make that happen because it wasn't laid out to me here on the table.
Yeah, right.
But that is what I knew that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I read The Slight Edge, and then I also read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
There we go.
And I had always thought of real estate as something that takes a lot of money. Real estate is expensive anywhere you go, and to me that meant it takes money. I had no money, so I knew that real estate was not an option for me if I don't have money.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do it because I knew it was a gateway to making financial progress.
Because you remembered your dad bought the farm for this amount, and 5 years later it was worth this. 20 years later,
it was worth double.
Right. Yeah.
And so anyway, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad is by Robert Kiyosaki. And in the book, he explained why real estate goes up in value. It's because they always print more money, by the way. And he also explained that you don't have to have money to buy real estate. And that was a brand new thought to me. I read it 5 or 6 times because I didn't like all parts of the book. It almost mocks hard work because hard work is great, but it's not hard work alone that gets you ahead. And that bugged me because I was a hard worker.
Yeah, as most Amish and Mennonites are, we're hard workers. I grew up kind of the same way you did. Hard work is important. I think that's missing in our culture, but hard work for a purpose is a good thing.
Yeah, sure. And so I read the book, and in there he explained the concept that you don't need money to buy real estate. You can, if you're good with people and you focus on relationships, you can buy property from, say, an older landlord, and he'll just let the money in. And that was brand new thinking to me. So after I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I started looking at real estate. And I said, so I called a realtor, and he took me out to look at some properties. And we found a really nice bank-owned property that, made a profit after all the payments were made. So I went to the bank and said, hey, look, Mr. Banker, I want to borrow $160,000 to buy this for you. And he looked at me and he said, or looked at my credit rather, and said, well, you're unemployed, you don't have steady income, and besides that, I don't know who your dad is, or we might lend you the money.
Yeah.
And I was upset. I said, look, this property makes profit every month. It pays for itself. And he wouldn't lend me the $160,000.
Yeah.
And so I was back to square one. So what do we do? So I was roofing, trying to make ends meet, and it was just a hard go.
And what year was this?
That was still in the later part of 2009.
Okay.
And then in 2010, I seen an ad in the paper. It said 2 units for sale by owner. And I said, well, maybe that owner would let the money. So I called him, and he said, I'm sorry, the property's already sold.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's too bad. But he said, I'm a real estate agent, and I'd be happy to show you some properties.
Of course he would.
I said, okay. So we went and looked at some properties, but they all needed bank financing. I said, look, I need owner financing. And he said, well, I'll look for you, but that's kind of hard to find. So I was forced to put that on the back shelf. And I kept roofing and looking at real estate. It had my attention, but I still didn't have the means to buy. And then on July 4th of 2010, I scootered out to Smoketown from Birmingham to the Turkey Hill and bought me a paper and read the paper. And in the classified ads, there was a little ad that said, real estate meeting every Tuesday night. So I called the number. And here it was for a guy that used to be a house flipper and had leukemia, so he couldn't do the hard work anymore. And he actually wasn't running a real estate meeting. He just wanted to and ran the ad to get a group of people together. But he had the smarts and he had the knowledge of how to flip properties. And I was like, that's fascinating. And he had reams of documentation on bank-owned properties. And he looked at me and he said, you should be flipping houses and making big money today. Forget about this slow path of renting properties, because it had always been about rental properties for me.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, when I have no idea how to fix up a house aside from shingles and siding.
Because you're a farmer.
I'm a farmer boy.
Yeah.
And I said, I have no money. He said, I have yet to see a young, hungry Amish guy not be able to figure a few things out. And he said, on the money part, he said, there's a lot of money out there. Think of some people that you suspect have a lot of money and show them your plan, and they will probably lend you the money. I said, who has that kind of money just sitting around? He said, they do.
Yeah.
So he offered to partner with me. He said, look, I'll show you how to flip houses, and we'll split the profits. I get 1/3, you get 2/3. And I was humble enough to understand that I don't know what I don't know. And I have a really good calculator. My calculator quickly told me that 2/3 of whatever profit we make is a lot more than the zero that I'm making in real estate right now.
Yeah.
So I did a big shift in my thinking. I shifted from thinking rental properties to flipping properties. And that was a big shift because I'm a farmer. I was in construction. I was in construction, but I didn't. It was more of like ag-related and not remodeling, by any stretch of the imagination. And so I did that shift. We looked at some properties and bought one bank and to get the financing, I went and visited my one father's friend who had, who I suspected had money, and I went there with shaking knees. And
trepidation.
I said, "Look, Sam, I have this opportunity here." And he said, "How much are you putting down?" I said, "Everything I've got." He said, "I'll lend you the rest."
Wow. So there are people out there that have money just sitting around.
Yeah, and what I didn't know is that he owned over 50 units himself.
There you go.
I thought he had made his money in white-tailed deer and his pig farm.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, he was well invested in real estate, knew it works, and liked my plan.
Yeah.
So that was my start.
Right, and that was 2010.
2010.
So you bought that property, you flipped it, and you made a profit?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah. My take home was $8,000. So we made like 12 grand total.
Yeah.
And Win Baker got the 4 grand, and I got the 8 grand.
Okay. Yeah.
And what was fascinating was we did it in a short time frame. I mean, I put less than 2 weeks of work in the property.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Wow. So as we're riding around Lancaster, he has a route that he's taking me, some projects that he's doing. We're driving down this road, and he says, "Oh yeah, I rehabbed and flipped that house right there, and there's another one on the other street." And I looked at him today. I said, "Man, your DNA is all over Lancaster." And so do you have an idea of how many houses you've actually flipped?
Yeah, we have sold over 200 houses.
Sold over 200 and owns just shy of 200 right now.
Well, we own 110 properties.
Okay.
196 units.
Units. Okay.
So
Yeah.
some of them would be single families, some would be multi-units.
Yeah.
But the property number would be around 110.
Yeah.
And the tenant number would be 106.
Gotcha.
That's currently where we're at.
So what is the hardest thing in the real estate investing industry?
The hardest thing is finding the balance of patience and perseverance
Okay.
and those are both two key components. You need the patience because when I started with no money, you can't start buying, let's say, $1 million complexes with no, well, I guess you could if you had owner financing, but there's a lot more risk.
Right.
And so you have to be humble enough to start with where you're at, which I started at the very bottom. City properties that were dirty and took lots of hard work to renovate them nicely. And after turning some profit and gaining some experience, then we were able to buy bigger properties.
Right.
And at that point, we were able to accelerate our portfolio building. And if I would have not had the patience to know that I'll get there, like these big shiny properties, I'll get there.
Yeah.
I would try to do them right away. I was probably burned out,
right?
Because there's a lot of risk in real estate, and so I started at the bottom, the cheapest. And it's
partly because that's where you were. You were at the bottom. We were talking about this on the car on the ride over here, that if you were advising a young person that has money to spend, would you advise them to start at the bottom or middle?
I would start at the not at the bottom tier properties, just because they can burn you out.
Yeah.
They take a lot of work. They're not appealing, but if you have some money, I would focus a bit more on equity appreciation.
Yeah. How important is it for a person to absolutely love what he or she does?
You can do it without that, but if you have that ingredient, it makes all the difference.
So he took me to a house that they're fixing up to actually sell, and he said, as I was walking around, he says, "I'm going to walk around one last time." And I saw something in you. I saw that you absolutely love what you do. And you were, in essence, kind of saying goodbye to the house, right?
Unfortunately, I was. It was one I decided to let go to trade it in for something bigger and better.
Yeah, but I saw in his heart, I saw in his eyes that this house it's not just a house that you're using to make money. There's a story. In fact, I had to kind of coach you through, because sentimental value, because he's selling some homes to accomplish what he calls bigger and better. And you're going to start seeing a big footprint here in Lancaster that has his name attached to it. But he's selling these homes that made him who he is today, so that he can become who he's going to be tomorrow. And there's some sentimental value there. And I actually had to kind of coach you through it. I said, don't let the sentimentalness keep you from making the right decision. Remember that conversation?
Yeah, and that was hard because I put a lot of work into these homes.
Yeah.
And I managed, them from a rental perspective for many years.
Yeah.
And they all have a story.
Yeah.
I acquired them through my relationships and through getting to meet people and just by working hard and
Yeah.
to let all that go, it was a challenge.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you definitely had a big hand up in getting to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And letting go and,
Yeah.
just understanding that if I'm going to have big goals, that there will be some letting go needs to be done.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you got me on the fast track to getting more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you partnered with this guy on your first property. He kind of mentored you. Talk to us about the importance of reaching out for help, asking the right people. What has that done for you in your, how many years you've been doing this? 14 years. So just so y'all know what's possible in 14 years from nothing, no money,
I had $89.
$89. Is that a true story? Like,
Yeah, not when I lost my job,
okay.
but we spent out of our savings. And at one point in that summer, I was, you could call it flat-footed. Now, I thought that was bad. I understand there's a lot of people that have, credit card debt and other debt way beyond zero.
Yeah, right.
But for me, this guy who was always going to pay my bills, having $89 left was really scary.
Yeah. Wow.
And that tested my commitment to always paying my bills on time.
Right. Yeah.
But I did have $89, but if you want to call it nothing, that's your choice.
Well, I think we can all relate to that too. When we hit rock bottom, but in 14 years, rock bottom to close to 200 units right now that he owns. That's amazing. It's an amazing story. So talk to us about mentorship, coaching. You chose to hire me the second time around. I'd like you to kind of tell the audience what I was able to do for you.
So last summer, a year ago, there were a lot of changes. There were a lot of changes coming in the economy in general. There were a lot of changes for me personally. And I just wasn't sure how to navigate all that. And I realized, Eli, you don't have to figure this all out yourself.
Yeah.
And I had followed Dave for a while and had, I really liked his style and his relationship building skills are second to none. And I just, I met you I connected with you again at the Lancaster Real Estate Group where you spoke.
Yeah, that's right.
And I said, I think he's my guy. I think he's the guy to help me through this transition. And specifically with regards to real estate and the economy, the interest rates were just sky high. They had just gone from 3.5% to 8%.
Yeah.
And
inflation was going up as well.
There was just a lot of disconnect and challenges coming up in real estate. And personally as well, there were a lot of changes happening. And it was overwhelming. And I said, you know what? I don't know what I don't know, and that's fine. But let's reach out, and then we can get past this challenge, these challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called Dave, and I said, hey, Dave, would you be interested in helping me get through this? And you wrote a book. Which year was that, The Freedom to Succeed?
That was 2011 is when I released it.
Well, anyway, many years later, Dave is still true to his roots, and through his, through your help, asking questions, your relationship skills, you truly did give me the freedom to succeed. Yeah. And specifically, I was bogged down with several key issues last summer that they were holding me back.
And it wasn't even related to real estate. It wasn't even related to business. It was something personal that he started sharing with me, and I just started asking questions, and just like that, something opened up, and he was amazed that I was able to see into that, how that was affecting your decision making and leadership skills. And so I've really seen him just like confidence, just going ahead, and it's not an arrogant confidence at all. It's more of a humble confidence that this is what I want to do. Here's how we're going to do it. And it's starting to flow.
Flow is a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get up in the morning and, I just have that flow.
Yeah.
Like things just come and the good thoughts just, I don't want to say just happen, but
Right.
I'm not fogged up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was a big help.
Yeah.
And then of course your being a business coach allowed you to really speak some key insight on business in general, and that was very helpful as well in getting you to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's what we all want. We all want to reach the next goal, the next level. Maybe it's just the entrepreneur thing, or maybe it's an Amish thing. I have no idea.
Yeah.
We're just always reaching for that next level. And I will say that I have definitely left the prior level behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
We call it bigger and better. So give our audience one last word of encouragement, one whatever you want to say, just in closing, and then I'll close it out.
Yeah. So what I'll say, one key takeaway. If there's one thing you want to remember today, it would be that remembering to be patient and setting yourself up for the long term, even if the path directly at this time is not clear to you. Think long term, and I would say read the slight edge. If you read the slight edge, you understand that it is okay to be patient. It is your direction that matters more than your current position.
And I think Zig Ziglar had two words. Yours is patience and perseverance, but his was consistent persistence. So it's kind of the same thing. I love that thought. I love the thought about the direction versus um, position. That's really important. So thank you guys for commenting, for sharing, for coming on the call. I do want to offer a free strategy call for any business owners that would like to take advantage of our free strategy call, and I will commit to talking with you and helping you through any challenges, mindset issues, leadership issues. I do a lot of relationship coaching, leaders to employees, and I'd love to have you on that call. So here's how you can do it. You can call 813-580-8920. Again, that's 813-580-8920, or you can go to davekaufmanspeaks.com and schedule it online. So thank you all for coming on. Thank you so much. Please share, and for those of you that are listening after the recording, thank you so much, and please share and comment as well. Talk to you soon.